All right, and welcome to the Chasin Bling Podcast. That's Big Ben. I'm Coop, and here we go for this week. We're excited for another great episode, and we've got some good shit to talk about this week. I think, Ben, we're gonna have some good conversation, and maybe share a laugh or two, and as always, we do need to pay homage to our brand 60, unleash your greatness, and we've got some really cool stuff in the studio today. So I'm going to show everybody here. We've got these wonderful flag football uniforms to be able to help people out. These ones are the hooded compression fit items. We've got a really cool hockey jersey to be able to help people out. And it is, spring, and spring is when the boys of baseball come out knocking. So we have our baseball offering to be able to help the folks out as well. And as we move along here, we do also need to say a good hello and welcome to our partnership with Legend Rings. We are very happy to be partnered with Legend and being able to provide some wonderful stuff from Legend, as you can see here. Absolutely amazing stuff. The finished quality is spectacular. If you are in the need and have just won a championship and you want to explore the championship ring world, please get in touch with us and we can give you a hand. All right. So, Mr. Ben, welcome back.
Thank you.
It's starting to look like spring out.
Finally, the snow's finally gone, and it's starting to warm up around here. It's kind of nice.
Well, it's always interesting, and it's recently in this area. What I've noticed is that the temperatures seem to go from very cold to very hot really fast.
Yeah.
So before we know it, we'll be complaining that it's 30 degrees out every day, and it's too hot. Even though last week we were still complaining there was snow on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the way it is this time of year in Ontario. Temperatures are high for some days, and then it's freezing the next day. So it's just something we have to work through, being here in the part of Ontario which we are. But no, nicer temperatures are on their way, and it's kind of nice to see that.
Absolutely. And before we get into today's discussion, we do always have to remind people that as with every episode, our podcast drinking game, is always in effect. And Ben, what's the disclaimer?
Yeah, we just would like to remind everybody to drink responsibly and abide by your local drinking age. Us at the Chasin Bling Podcast will not be held responsible for any actions or outcomes as a result of personal decisions.
Excellent. And as a promoter of this part of our podcast, we like to give some props to our friends at Black's Distillery here in Peterborough, Ontario. They make some absolutely phenomenal stuff. You can visit them at blacksdistillery.com, as you see on the ticker below, or at 99 Hunter Street East here in Peterborough. If you're local, go say hi to the good folks over there. Tell them the Chasin Bling Podcast sent you, and you might be able to get in on some tastings. Well, We've got some good topics for the good folks out there this week, Ben.
We do. We do have some good topics on board.
And so, without further ado, I guess we should dive into our first topic of discussion for the day, which revolves around the recruiting world for young Canadian football players that are looking to potentially make that jump from high school to college.
Yeah, it's recruiting season, and it's an exciting time for young football players here in Canada as well in the United States. But we want to hint on our fellow Canadian athletes. It's an interesting time of year, but it's also exciting. It just is. I mean, I can only imagine the minds of young athletes going through, the next couple months,
Yeah,
whether it's jitters or excitement, whatever it may be. But
it's a little bit of both, right? Because, um, and it's very different between the NCAA and the U Sports side of things, because they happen at different times of year and in different years.
yes,
So the the conversation that we're going to have that I'm excited to have today kind of sheds a little light on what this is, the emotions that are involved with it, and some absolutely crazy things that are happening in this world, that affects our young athletes here in Canada.
yes. Yeah, no, it's like you said, it is an exciting time, but it's also different times that it happens between both the United States and Canada. And for right now, our Canadian athletes are gearing up and they're taking calls or taking meetings and they're sitting down and hearing to what colleges and universities have to say and eventually getting to a decision that where they want to, you know, take their talents and go support that university or college. But it, like you said, it is quite different. I know in the football world, what they can offer certain students is a complete 180 from what the United States do
Oh, absolutely it
with
is.
regards to NIL.
Oh, are we gonna dive into that right away? Oh, let's go. So, um, yeah, the world of Canadian university sport and American university sport is polarizingly different in the well, let's just say it's polarizingly different for let's just call it 100 schools in the United States, right? There's over 300 universities in the United States that play football. But the focus is always on the schools that are in what we call now the Power 5 conferences. And those schools are the ones that you see on TV every Saturday that have budgets that are incredible, facilities that are through the roof insane, and it's ultimately, as a young athlete who is wanting to achieve that next level of performance, and that's what you dream of, that's what you aspire to. But now things are changing, and you alluded to it earlier with the NIL and with now the rules and regulations around the transfer portal. That world is dramatically changing for our young Canadian athletes.
Yeah, and especially with what these schools in the Power Five can offer young kids to come play for them is astounding.
Mhm.
And we're not talking like a couple $1,000s here. We're talking sometimes millions of dollars.
Well, I've got a stat for you.
All right.
Because I know you're a stats guy, and this one's very, very recent. It's been in the news within the last week. The starting quarterback for the University of Tennessee
Yes.
decided that he wanted to renegotiate his NIL deal. Well, let's just start off with where he was at. So this young man, Nico Lavea, was getting paid as a college athlete $2.4 million a year. His total agreement, because he even started getting paid in high school, by the time he was finished college, he would have been paid approximately $10 million to play college football.
Yes.
Well, I don't know whether it was through his own beliefs in himself, through the grapevine of people telling him that he was worth more, this, that, and the other thing, he decided to go back to the school and say, I would like to renegotiate for over $4 million a year. And this is pure hearsay. I don't know whether this is true or not, but I also heard that he wanted a $4 million Bugatti car. Well, Josh Heupel, who is the head coach of the University of Tennessee, he's from my era, so he's a little bit old school, and he believes that not one player is bigger than the school. So his belief was that you are getting paid enough, and we're not going to renegotiate your deal. And then Nico decided to enter the transfer portal. To go, and this world is insane, because what we're now seeing is that this Power 5 situation, and there is a trickle down effect to the kind of the FCS and FBS schools that aren't Power 5, and then even into the Div 2 schools, where the transfer portal is now the first go for recruiting.
Yes.
And the reason being, and I understand a lot of it. I do, because all of the coaches, they're getting paid to win. They're not getting paid to foster young boys to be men and all of this, and which was kind of the way things happened in the past. Now it's more about winning.
Yeah.
Because winning brings corporate sponsorships and better recruits and improved program and all of that stuff. So when you have the ability to now go and select from a pool of players who are a little older, a little more mature, and a little more groomed for the college game, they can step in and have an impact right away.
Yeah.
Where most high school students, you need a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 before you're ready to have an impact on the field come game day.
Yeah. I think it's crazy that these college athletes think they hold so much power. But that being said, they do in some regards, but not, I think, for the price teams are paying these athletes.
Well,
yeah, they're here to win, but at the end of the day, they're as much as I do, it's a numbers game when it comes to how many chances these kids are able to step on the field. And with NIL, it just continues to like hinder the chances some athletes get.
Well, it really, it's an interesting. This conversation can go on forever,
Yeah.
because it really it can really show you what type of individual you're getting as a coach. It's one of the main drivers of Nick Saban stepping away from coaching college football.
Yeah.
He's been open and honest in saying that it got really sad hearing potential student athletes coming in and saying, "Well, what's the program going to do for me?" And then almost immediately after saying that, saying, "Well, how much are you going to pay me?"
Yes. It's disgusting. It is. It is.
Coming from the Canadian side of things, where most Canadian students are paying to play as the best athlete on the field, it's very, very different, right? It's a whole different world.
It's completely different.
And as you and I talked about it earlier this week when we were talking about this topic as a podcast episode, to say what's Canada like in comparison. Well, here's the nitty-gritty, is that in the US, they're depending on the level of play dictates the number of full ride scholarships you can hand out.
Yes.
So in the Power 5 conferences, they are allowed to hand out a grand total of 86 full ride scholarships. Now, on a roster of 120 guys, you would probably you kind of have that walk-on level of 5, maybe 10 guys that are paying full pocket to be there.
Yes.
They have a number of guys that are their full ride scholarship people. And then in the middle, there's this blend of mixed scholarships. So they take a portion of that 86 and turn that into partials.
Yes.
It's either halves or quarters or thirds, so that they can give a vast majority of their players some money, a bunch, all the money. But now this nil side of things changes that, where some of those guys don't need a scholarship anymore, and now maybe everybody gets a scholarship. I don't know. But in Canada, scholarships aren't, because there's only 27 schools across the country at the U Sports level that play football. Scholarships are dictated by the conference in terms of what the give is. And it's very different across the country. So in the Canada West, where I went to school, and it's changed dramatically since then. I'm a lot older now, and things have changed. But today, what the Canada West schools are allowed to offer is, if they're offering a student a quote unquote full ride, what that means is that they're allowed to give that student full tuition and the associated fees that go along with it. It's not room, it's not board, it's not food, it's just tuition and fees. Coming into Ontario, a quote unquote full ride is $5,000. That is very different than tuition and fees, which for most schools, tuition and fees, is in the ballpark of $7,500 to $8,500.
Yeah.
For your tuition and the fees associated. $5,000 doesn't cover that.
Doesn't get you far.
And then it's different in Quebec, and it's different because Quebec has a very different costing structure, and then it's different again in the East. So it it's very different in Canada. But as a result of the whole transfer portal and nil, there are and will continue to be, in my opinion, fewer and fewer opportunities available for Canadian kids to play at the NCAA Power 5 level. Um,
Yeah.
and uh, um, I didn't get a chance to look this up before we came on live today, but I do also believe that international students are not able to collect nil, but they would be able to go on scholarship.
It's interesting that you brought up nil and the transfer portal because they are done at different times. Like in the NCAA, the transfer portal opens up before the college playoffs begin.
Mhm.
You have such a fast turnover in regards to your next year's team being sometimes 48 hours. Where now there's no time to think, plan. You're going after said athlete that wants to change of scenery. Where before it was a process. You
Mhm.
had to plan and you had to go see this athlete face to face and try and convince him other ways to come play for your program.
Yep.
Where now, if they get an NIL deal with, let's just say, IHOP, they're fine because they're doing deals with IHOP through either advertisements or anywhere else. They're getting their money.
Mhm.
It's no longer about, getting an education and playing for a good school and sticking with the school. It's just, well, I'm getting my money. I'm going to go wherever is best.
Yep.
So now you're
And
seeing athletes jump 3 or 4 times.
yeah, it's becoming less and less about the education and more about the sport. And that Power 5 grouping is becoming more and more a new professional league than a college league.
Yeah.
I you know what? I I don't I'm not, my eyes haven't been pulled my the wool hasn't been pulled over my eyes in terms of understanding and having seen the fact that the NFL pipeline that is college football has been there for years, and that's been the dream of so many kids. And that dream, once it I don't know what the turnover and dropout rate is, when you look at the numbers of athletes that enter college thinking that they're going to the show, not doing what they need to for school because they're like, I'm going to make all my money in the NFL, and having to go back home, get a job doing whatever, and never making it because they put all their eggs in the NFL basket.
Yeah.
That's been happening for years. But now this whole nil side of things is changing the game where well, we just saw it with, the starting quarterback from last year's Georgia Bulldogs team.
Oh, Carson Beck.
Carson Beck, decided to enter the transfer portal and go to Miami instead of entering the NFL draft this year because the University of Miami offered him more money than he would make in his first 3 years in his rookie contract in the NFL.
Well, yeah, and I know we mentioned this Isla Fallow athlete out of Tennessee who now is going to UCLA. He is making, I believe, this year for UCLA like $2.4 million. Well, there's a not a rookie quarterback, but a quarterback in the NFL that's in his last year of his rookie deal, Brock Purdy, who's gone to a Super Bowl, NFC championships, and he makes $880,000.
Mm-hmm.
I almost find it sickening in a way because Brock Purdy's a stellar athlete and he's getting a good paycheck for playing pro ball, and we have young athletes that have no idea what they're doing and making millions of dollars. It's crazy. It's one of those things that just
it's the machine is working at a very different level than it used to. Again, I'll fall back to the impact on Canadian kids, where some of those kids that might deserve an opportunity to play at one of those schools won't get it.
exactly.
And that being said, I'm all for the growth of Canadian university football. And if this forces more kids to stay home and play at schools at the U Sports level, what does that do for the visibility of Canadian football? And I think that should there be enough people interested, should there be enough people with vested interest to be able to perhaps enhance the financial backing of all 27 teams across the country, there could be something special come of this within the next 3 to 5 years.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, if we shine a little more light on these athletes, what they're able to do and the level they're able to do it at will further impact our Canadian game.
And all we need, it's one of the main drivers of this podcast is to shed light on Canadian sports and make people aware that these things are going on. And in future episodes, we will be outlining the schedules and the locations of every single U Sports football team across the country, so that everybody will know if they hop on our podcast when, where, and how they can access amazing quality Canadian football, promote some home talent, and get it for a family-friendly price.
Yeah, you've said it. You said it best.
So, on that note, I think we'll press the pause button on this topic for now. We are both very passionate football people, so the Canadian football conversation will continue.
Yes, it will.
But we've got an exciting new thing coming to our podcast this week, and that is Storytime. I'm excited about this one because this is one of those key things that um, allows people to know us a little better.
Yeah,
But as we travel through this podcast experience, and as we gain more guests to come on to the show, we are going to provide them with the opportunity for a story time story as well.
exactly.
So just to give our followers a little bit of an outline as to what story time is going to entail. We have put together a series of questions that every time a story time episode will air, Ben and I will ask each other the same question, and then we will tell a story from our past that that answers that question. Um, and then whenever we have a guest on the show, we will ask them the same questions. So we have questions, and we have them outlined in a sequence, so that as if we have repeat guests, they will follow along in the same pattern as Ben and I have answered. So without further ado, today's story time question is, who is the most famous person you've ever met? Ben, who's the most famous person you've ever met?
Well, there's a couple that come to mind, but there's one that really comes to mind with this one, and it's when I went to my first RBC Canadian Open and had the privilege of following around and having a quick conversation with John Daly.
Oh, nice.
So, as most viewers or listeners may know, John Daly is quite the figurehead in the game of golf. He was at his later stages of playing in the PGA Tour. My cousin and I were the only two individuals following John all day. And as the round went on, John increasingly noticed my cousin and I following him, and being on his tail, saying, "Good shot, John! Yeah, way to go!" And it was around hole 15. He kind of looked at us and goes, "Watch this, boys!" And he hit a shot, and it was a high draw, and he dropped it into a tuck pin within a foot and a half. I looked at my cousin. We were just in awe. After the round, he just, he gave us a head shake, and he just said, thanks for, watching me today. I really appreciate it. We're like, not a problem. Like, this guy's a living legend, and, it's something I'll never forget because of just the magnitude this guy was in his heyday on the PGA Tour.
Oh, that's awesome. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
During the round, did you happen to count the number of Diet Cokes he slammed, and the number of packs of smokes he chain smoked?
The cigarettes never left his mouth. When it did, it was for a Diet Coke. But I do remember, at one point pointing out to my cousin how strong his caddy must be to carry the amount of pop he had in his side of his bag.
So, and it's funny because I always want, like, you see on tour, you get glimpses of what they have access to, and so every few holes you'll see a golfer kind of slip off to a cooler or a bin, and grab a banana or a water or what have you. I just wonder, like, if it was part of his caddy's job to go out prior to John arriving at the range pre-round and stocking those areas with Diet Cokes and smokes and the smokes wouldn't have been as heavy, but definitely Diet Cokes around the course. So he was only having to carry like maybe 3 or 4 Diet Cokes at a time.
Yeah, and like it wasn't a can of Coke, like it was like your 710 milliliter bottle of Cokes. He was
Oh my
pulling bag. So like they weren't small, like they would have been heavy. But yeah, I do wonder that if that's the part of his gig is
well,
to
I would, for his caddy's sake, I would hope so. And if I was the caddy, I would willingly arrive an hour before range time to be able to go out and take a, you may be able to hop on a cart or whatever and go stash, you know, 2 or 3 liters of Diet Coke in each thing, so you're only carrying 3 of those bottles around at a time. Because, yeah, if you had to carry that much around, like, even for 9 holes
yeah.
would have been a task and a half.
Well, and they were playing at Hamilton Golf and Country Club, and
Mm.
it's not the flattest track in the world. Like
No, it's not.
it's quite hilly in some spots. So I would assume a weight, limit on the bag would be in a topic of discussion for him and his caddy. Like, okay, where do you want me to drop off these Diet Cokes for you to swig back? But yeah, it's one of those stories I'll never forget. It's I laugh at it now because of the stuff that comes out about John on a regular basis and what he does on YouTube Golf and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was just it was one of those stories that I had to say because it's John Daly.
Well, haven't his on his YouTube and his social stuff, haven't the Diet Cokes changed to Bud Lights?
I believe so. I think he's starting to slow down the sugar and go heavy on the carbs.
He is an entertaining fellow.
Yes. So yeah, that's my story for week 1. So I guess it's my turn to ask you who your most famous person was you've had the pleasure to meet.
Wow. This one's fun. So when I was at UBC, part of the athlete experience was that the athletics group hosted athlete nights at different venues, different watering hole venues across the city. And it just so happened that on the evening of my 23rd birthday, there was such an event. It was held at the, I want to say, world famous Roxy Cabaret on Granville Street in Vancouver. One of the most popular bars in town. This was a place. It was one of my more favorite spots. It was a great collection of live music, great atmosphere, and you were always. It was always interesting to see who you would meet in line, kind of waiting for the door staff to let you in on the VIP side. So though there were a few of us from this football team at UBC that knew some folks at the door, and we were always able to access that VIP line. And in the VIP line, there was usually a couple of guys from the BC Lions and, maybe a few hockey players that were playing either for the Canucks or playing versus the Canucks come and go, because it was one of those places where athletes like to hang out. So that evening, we were inside the venue. As I mentioned, it was my birthday that night, so having a few friends around never hurt So I was enjoying myself immensely. Um, and I was there in the Roxy. There were two rooms. There was the large front room where they had the stage for the band and the dance floor and a large gathering area for people. And then there was this little tiny back bar room. And the back bar room was two levels. The bar was on the upper level. There were a few places to sit and a bar. And then on the lower level, they had two pool tables. So I was and then near the back bar was the area where they had the washrooms and staff room and all that kind of stuff. And I remember coming out of the bathroom and coming back from that back area into the front area, and all I saw was this massive crowd of people coming towards me. And I was like, I can't go that way. I can't get, so I had to keep backing up and backing up and backing up. And I ended up in the back bar area. And as the crowd moved into that area, it thinned because there just simply wasn't enough room for everyone. And I finally got a glimpse of why there was this big crowd. It was the most famous number 23 in the world. I was standing face to face with Michael Jordan.
Oh.
And there was Michael and his security team and a few of the other guys, and they were coming into the back room because they were playing the Grizzlies the next night, and they just wanted to come hang out, play some pool, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Well, Michael's security team very quickly cleared out the pool table area of practically everyone and a lot of the people in the bar area, because Michael just wanted to play pool. And so for some reason, and I don't know whether I said it, I had a few adult beverages by this point. and I don't know whether I just said, "Hey, it's my birthday," or whether I was just like that comfortable, mellow guy. I was allowed to hang out and sit on the ledge of where the room dropped levels and hang out and watch Michael play pool.
That's crazy.
As the evening went on and Michael had more and more cranberry juices and I had more and more adult beverages, he started asking me what shots he should make on the pool table. And we got into quite a really good rhythm of conversation during the time he was playing pool and all of that. And by the end of the night, it was a very comfortable interaction. I had heard a lot of different stories by that time about different interactions he had with fans and whatnot. And he's just a nice guy, you know, and I know that a lot of people kind of gave him crap for not being the guy to sign everybody's autograph and whatnot. And he didn't sign an autograph for me that night. I asked his head of security if he would sign something for me, and I understood the reasoning that I got, which was that if he stops to sign one, he's got to sign them all.
Yes.
Well, there were at least 1,000 people in that bar that night.
Yeah.
If it takes you 10 seconds to sign an autograph, plus a couple more seconds to interact with somebody, that extends his time at a location by hours.
Yes. Now, my question for you, was he any good at pool?
Yeah, he was.
Was he?
Oh, yeah. well, it's funny because you hear later that Michael likes to place wagers on games, golf. He likes to gamble in Vegas. So if he's going to play, and this is the thing about Michael, like, and as athletes, there's this inner drive in you, and the drive is to be the best. So if he's going to, if Michael look at how he played basketball.
Yeah.
Then you look at how he plays golf. He's a very, very, very good golfer.
Yeah.
If he's going to play pool, and if he's going to go somewhere to play pool, he's not going to be bad. So it was funny because I was like, and we all know with bar games like pool and darts and things like that, we all tend to get better with the more adult beverages we have. Things become clearer to see, even though our vision may not be, what have you. But I was, hit this, and he would do it. So he was able to perform with the advice that I was giving, and he was saying that works.
That's pretty cool. Like that.
Yeah. So to add on to my story, that night, I also met Jeremy Roenick and Chris Chelios from the Chicago Blackhawks, and a handful of other guys that I had met before from the Lions. I had met before from the Canucks. So it was a good night had by all, and a very good story for me to put into Storytime.
No, I think that's perfect because, well, we both had two different athletes who at separate times, longer for Jordan, being the king he was, but for also John being as great as he was, but in his own different way. It was a perfect way to kick off Storytime.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that with you and I talking about where to go with Storytime, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because we will come back around to this same question probably 2 or 3 more times, and we will have different stories because we both have other people that we've met through our lives that we can tell stories about. I know you're intrigued to hear my next one when I talk about one of the most famous rock and roll bands of all time.
Yes, I am.
All righty. So, Storytime 1 down and more to come. Well, folks, it's been another great episode.
Another great week.
Thank you, Ben, for sharing your story time and your thoughts on the recruiting process in college football, both on the Canadian and American sides of the border. And I'm looking forward to next week when we get back together and we talk more sports and who knows what will come of next week. It could be baseball. It could be more football. It could be anything.
No, thanks, Coop.
All righty. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again next week when we do this again. And as always, if you've liked what you've seen here today, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, or share it with some friends that you think would enjoy the show too. All righty, folks. Well, thank you very much, and have a great week.
Bye, everybody. Bye.